So the three suspects that we are using for these tests are acrylic paint manufacturer from Spain. That's AK, Model Air Vallejo, and acrylic color from Ammo Mig. We are going to use the medium gunship gray of each brand. This is our test object. It's a spare wing. I primed it with black primer and gray primer on the inside. I don't really remember why the hell I did this, because now I have some overspray. Now I have the thinner of each brand, so we can make sure everything runs smoothly and we face no problems with thinning. I just masked the areas and then we are going to test. Number one will be the medium gunship gray of AK. Now, you always have to shake it thoroughly before you start using it. That's very important, so all the ingredients of the paint can join together. First thing we notice is this paint is quite thick. It's not dripping down off my mixing tool. And you can see it stays there on the wall of my mixing cup. It's like it's thick. So we need to thin it. Do not forget to shake the thinner as well. That's also important. The consistency that we want to achieve is like a milky consistency, okay? Not as liquid or fluid as water. It should be like milky. The paint is quite thick, so I think the ratio is like 50-50 minimum. Maybe even 60-40, like 60% thinner. I'm laying down the first coat. What is very important when you use acrylic, when you work with acrylic paints, the first coat should be very thin, like a mist. Don't expect to see the color tone already when you lay down the first coat, okay? It will build up. You have to do several coats and always, leave a drying time of 5 to 10 minutes minimum in between. And you see the wet paint on the surface is quite shiny. It looks a bit grainy, just a little bit. But let it dry and then we will compare. Up next is the Ammo Mig. These bottles come with the steering ball. And it's needed because there's a lot of pigments in these paints. You can hear it. It's like a grinder when you're mixing it. Now the Ammo acrylics are much more fluid than the AK ones, so they are less thick and you don't have to use that much thinner to thin them down and get this milky consistency that we want. You see like these beige type of, I don't know, color pigments, I don't know exactly what it is, they float on top. Since we used a bit less thinner for the ammo paint, the first coat is already covering like 2 coats of the AK. And we can see that this is really, I think the pigments are also visible here in the wet paint on the surface. When you hold it into the light in a certain angle, you can see it's quite grainy. So another beautiful thing about working with acrylic paints, you see that arm right there? That's the arm of my 7-year-old daughter. So while I'm doing this test and spraying that wing, she can stand right next to me. It's not a problem because it's not harmful. It's not bad for your health if you use acrylic paints. That's lovely. Last but not least is the Vallejo version of the medium gunship gray. And Vallejo paints are also, they are quite liquid. You see, they drip down from my mixing tool without even thinning them. So you don't need much thinner. And you have to be careful not to over thin them, because then you will have no coverage and it will be like a water type of consistency. You don't want that. If you dropped in too much thinner, then equal it with a few drops of the paint. Now same here, the first coat is not completely covering. You can see the black primer still shining through, and the paint has a very nice satin look when it's wet on the surface. the wet paint. So I'm doing the third coat to make sure that we have the 100% coverage and we can really combine and compare the paints. This has dried now for around two hours. Yeah, 1.5, 2 hours. Now let's reveal it and let's have a look at the result. Okay, so this is it. That's the result. Here is AK. This is the Vallejo. And here, over here, we got the Ammo Mig. And you can see already there's a big difference in the color tone of the AK compared to the other two ones, right? This one is much darker. Now the Ammo one is a bit more dark than the Vallejo tone, but not as dark as the AK. So the AK is the darkest, this one here. Then the Ammo, and the brightest one is the Vallejo. And what we also see right here when we get a little bit closer is that the Ammo one here, this one dries in satin. This has a satin finish, and the other two ones a flat finish. The Vallejo one is like, let's say, less flat than the AK one. The AK dries really flat. So we should not only have a look at it with our eyes, but also feel it with our fingers. So let me see the surface. This is a bit rough, but not too much. This one here is a bit sticky, much more sticky than the one over here. It could be because this had the least time, the drying time, but yeah, this is a bit more sticky, and this one is the roughest one. Because we saw it in the paint already, that Ammo contains a lot of pigments, or the most pigments, like the one you can really feel them when you mix the paint. And you can also feel them here on the surface when you touch the surface with your finger. The AK is the smoothest. Vallejo dries a bit sticky. And the AK, although it has a satin finish, it leaves the surface the most rough. Doesn't look like this. So there we see the difference from our visual and the feeling that we get when we touch it. Now to my eyes, they all look good. They all look good, all the trees. But if I had to pick one of which I like the finish the most, it would be the one in the middle, the Vallejo one. And then I think AK and Ammo, I would rate the same. Very different, but I love the finish of all of the tree, but me personally, I prefer the one in the middle. Now, after seeing and hearing all this, which one is your preference? Which one you like the most? Please let me know in the comments section. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.